Hi, beautiful people. Chase Sutton here, Associate Pastor at VLCC, and today's title of the mini message is called Rooted. So I'm going to give you the definition of rooted. Rooted is when something is established deeply and firm, like a tree, a plant, or my least favorite, weeds. So I'm going to talk about my experience, my yard work experience during the whole quarantine COVID-19 thing that has been going on for a while now. So I'm one of those different type of people who enjoys yard work. I enjoy taking something that looks ugly or raggedy or unkept and making it beautiful, and then standing back and looking at my work and saying, oh, this looks so good, and I want to maintain how it looks. So just doing yard work before COVID-19, our yard was a jungle. We were late at taking care of it in the fall. In the the wintertime, of course, you can't take care of it because it's super cold, everything's frozen. And then the springtime, when everything unthawed, we still had leaves from the fall on the ground. We had to get those up. Weeds were everywhere. The flower beds were just covered in weeds, and it was just looking a bit crazy. But since we were quarantined and I was off work, working from home, both me and my husband, I made it a point to get out in the yard at least 3 times a week. And in that time, I'm pulling up roots, digging out weeds, just doing the whole nine, getting out the tools, shoveling stuff, just trying to beautify it once again so I can sit back and look at my work and say, this looks gorgeous. And my favorite thing to do in the yard is to plant flowers and trim up the bushes. But in order to plant the flowers that I want to plant, I do have to clear out the weeds, which is my least favorite thing to do. But sometimes you have to do those things that you don't like the most in order to be able to do the things that you enjoy the most. And what I like to do when I'm pulling out the weeds is pull them by hand. I don't really like to use the tools to pull them. I like to feel the pop to know that I've gotten the root of the weed, so none of them will spring back. But of course, you can't get those all. And my favorite time, what I've learned is that my favorite time to work in the yard is when it had rained the day before, and then the day later, it's nice and sunny. The soil's soft. You can still pull those roots out, and it's just super, super easy. But what I've learned working yard work, also what I've learned is that roots are resilient, because a lot of the time they don't come all the way up. When you pull up a root weed or a plant, you realize that the roots are spread all across the yard, and so they end up sprouting in different places. And also during the dry days, you think they're dead, but as soon as rain comes and a little bit of sun hits them, they spring up with new life, sometimes stronger than they were before, and then you're out pulling and digging them up again, and it's just a never-ending cycle, yard work. But I wanted to say, when rooted in God, if we take the yard work perspective and translate it into being rooted in God, or better yet, when God roots us in Him, our roots become resilient in dry seasons in our lives. Like roots, the Lord knows what parts of us need to be uprooted, which parts of us need to be rooted deeper in Him, and how much dry weather, rain, sun, we as individuals need to cause us to grow. When we grow, our shoots begin to sprout out of the ground, and the Lord knows exactly how we will blossom, and our blossoms will be beautiful. I'm going to talk to you guys briefly today about the story of Job in the Bible. Job was the most righteous man in the land of Uz. The Lord trusted him and allowed him to be tested by the devil. And so in that test, the devil caused him to lose his family. He caused him sickness in his body. His wife was against him. His friends thought he sinned against God and was just doing something wrong. And after all this that was going on, after all this that the devil tested him with, because what the devil wanted to prove to God was that Job will denounce him. Job would leave him out of his anger. He would curse God. And so But the Lord knew who Job was and who he would blossom out of those trials, blossom to be out of those trials. So after all this was said and done, Job was going through all that and depression and sadness and loneliness and wondering, why am I going through this? All that stuff that's what Job was kind of dealing with because of everything that seemed like it was falling in against him. And so we're going to go to Job 14:7-9. And this is a hopeless prayer that Job sent forth to God. And we're going to focus in on what he said. Job said, "At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water, it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant." So that was a hopeless prayer, but I want to give you something that's turned this scripture around into a God perspective about Job and ultimately about us. God sees us like a tree, and he is our hope. When the storms of life cut us down, we will sprout again, and our new shoots will not fail. When our roots grow old in the ground and our stumps die in the soil, remember that it's only the Lord shedding off our old and bringing in the new. So his living water can make us flourish through and through. This is what God did for Job at the end of the story. God rooted Job deeper in him and restored everything he lost. This is God's exact plan for our lives. So be encouraged. Know that whatever storms of life that you may be going through or dealing with it, and it seems like there is no end, we will come out so much better at the end of our story, at the end of that season in our lives that we are growing through, and God will bring so many blessings to us. Well, that concludes my message for today. God bless, and let's